If you have a Faire shop that's already making some sales, but the orders are still inconsistent, retailers aren't reordering, and you still cannot figure out why, I need you to hear this. It's not because you're not working hard enough, and it's not because your products aren't good enough. It's because you're flying blind. And there is data sitting in your Faire dashboard right now telling you exactly what's working and what's broken. But no one has ever taught you how to read it. And so you spend time just guessing. I know because I've been there. And you change random things and hope something sticks. And here's what that guessing actually cost you. The average Faire seller doing around 10 orders a month is leaving somewhere between $17,000 and $70,000 in profit on the table every single year just by staying stuck. My name is Andy, and I built and scaled my own wholesale brand on Faire from the ground up. And I'm one of a handful of sellers and industry experts that Faire pulls in to test the platform, which means I see how the algorithm actually behaves, not what the forums and the other coaches are teaching you, but what Faire actually rewards. And I took everything I learned and turned it into the Faire 5 framework. It's a 3-phase system that moves you from inconsistent orders to a predictable wholesale revenue engine in just 90 days. It's visibility, it's positioning, it's conversion, it's reorders, and a momentum that compounds. So this is not just a course that you watch once and forget. It's a growth operating system. Just a few extra wholesale orders, which you will gain quickly throughout this program, will more than pay for this course. So if you're done playing small and Faire, if you're ready to stop guessing and go beyond the visibility and drive real conversions and reorders and get help along the way, learn more and apply at faireaccelerator.com or at the link in the show notes. I'll see you inside. Here's something very few brands on Faire can actually say, that they know exactly what the buyer on the other side is thinking because they are the buyer too. Most of us are guessing what retailers want, but my guest today doesn't have to guess. Lauren Rauter opened her boutique Rock, Paper, Scissors back in 2003 and then turned 2 decades of retail floor knowledge into a thriving wholesale brand. Actually, now 3 brands. She sits on both sides of the invoice, and that changes everything about how she builds, prices, and sells. Welcome to She Sells Differently. Hi, friends. Welcome to She Sells Differently, the show for aspiring women entrepreneurs looking to overcome the fear of selling and grow thriving businesses from a place of authenticity and confidence. I'm Andy Hart, and it wasn't all that long ago that I was a sales executive for a Fortune 500 company. But I knew in my heart that I was called to use my gifts for something more, something different. That's exactly why I created the She Sells Differently podcast. Each episode is going to deliver you business strategies, tools, and mindset shifts to help set you and your brand apart from our culture's expectations. It's time to elevate your sales and build a profitable, sustainable business you're proud of, one built on integrity, grace, and humility. It's time to learn how to sell differently. Welcome, Lauren, to the She Sells Differently podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Before I dive into the first question, this is a fun little story that I have to share. I've already told Lauren this, but I used to live in Nashville, and Lauren's boutique, Rock, Paper, Scissors, is in downtown Franklin. If you have ever been to downtown Franklin, you've probably been in her shop. And I was actually visiting a sweet, dear friend of mine a few weeks ago and went into Lauren's shop and shopped there. And then we connected through She Sells Differently. So it's just a small world that I've actually been to your shop.
It's a
and
small world. Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. But I want to talk a little bit because you have a really unique perspective that I know my listeners are going to love to hear. You opened Rock, Paper, Scissors in, I think, 2003, right?
2003. I like to tell people I opened it up as an infant so that they can't figure out my age.
That's so funny. I bet you have learned so much because 2003 was long before Faire or Wholesale brand were a part of your vocabulary, right? And so take me back to the moment you realized your retail knowledge could actually become a wholesale business. What made you jump into that?
Well, it's sort of like anything that we ever do. I feel like it just kind of happens accidentally. It was something that we talked about for like a really long time, like, oh, we should, have a wholesale brand. I'd love to have a wholesale brand. And just to kind of like expand our scope so that when different parts of the economy go down or we have a slow day in the store that, we're not completely panicked.
Yeah,
So being that we opened in 2003, we've lived through a lot of different things that have
to say the least, right? Yeah.
yeah, we've lived through a recession and COVID and all the things. So all of this brought up with, gosh, I wish we had more web sales. I wish we had this, and we happened to be asked to do a pop up at the Graduate Hotel in Nashville. And I thought, oh, yeah, like let's make some of our own stuff. And it's the Graduate, and we'll do like Dolly stuff and be like Nashville. And we put some of that in our store. And I was like, oh, this is really selling well. Dolly's great for being in Nashville, but it didn't apply to everybody. And
Right.
we started dabbling in a couple other things. And we happened to have a buyer from a large retailer come in, see our Dolly things, and say, "Oh, like, could we buy these?" And I am one to say yes before I know if I actually can do anything. You and I
Yep.
had talked about that. I am famous for, yeah, sure. And then she was like, "Oh, do you do the design work?" And so she was like, "Could you do happy faces? Could you put this on a latte glass? Could you put this on a tumbler?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I had no
Absolutely.
idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that sort of developed to all of a sudden I had this huge part of my business where I was doing all this custom stuff for another large retailer. Um, and they, were throwing things at me like, you need a warehouse. You can't send the stuff straight here. And I originally moved everything out of my garage, our 2-car garage, put everything in storage in there. And I was shipping pallets out of my garage. I don't think my HOA would appreciate. Really hope no one from the HOA is listening. Um, so, and then we started saying like, wow, we're doing this for somebody else. Like we would really like to do this for ourselves. So we started dabbling on Faire and bringing in little products. We started with a pair of slippers and, we did well. And I got a phone call from the national retailer and I was doing several $1 million with them. And overnight, they said, we've cut our gift division and we no longer will be needing anything. And after I had a complete and utter mental breakdown, I was like, okay, wait, this is good. Like, this happened for a reason. Like, God
Mhm.
put us in this direction
Yeah.
for a reason. I had put all my eggs in one basket and I felt like I was living this like weird double life where I had my store and nobody knew that when they were shopping in this retailer, the tumbler they were buying was something that I had made
Yeah.
for them. So it was like this weird, like double life we were leading. And it just sort of grew and exploded through Faire mainly.
I love it because something you said really resonated with me that well, two things. You were saying it really kind of happened by accident. And I venture to guess so many people listening,
Mhm.
sometimes your business or businesses do happen by a good accident. And I don't, as a Christian, I am always like, the Lord is in everything. Like he knew exactly what was happening. It wasn't an accident, but it's like that
Yeah.
all
And I
of
agree.
your road leads to that.
Um, Years ago before COVID, I started saying we should do balloons in our retail store. And I remember Jessica, who's been with me for like 10 years and is on maternity leave right now. I'm not doing that. It's too much. And then I was like, well, let's just do this install. And we did an install not knowing what we were doing. And then was let's personalize some balloons. And then COVID happened. And that's what kept us afloat were
Yeah.
these balloons. And we were doing, you know, untouchable deliveries. We were, ringing doorbells and dropping the balloons and running and sending party in a bags to people from the shop. And it's one of those things where it's like, gosh, like God put that in my hands
Yeah.
to get this like balloon thing. And without it, like, I don't think we would have lasted through COVID. I had no problem
Yeah.
paying my rent through COVID, which is not something that a lot of people were blessed with.
That's incredible too. I think one of the things that is really eye-opening to me that you have done and product business owners need to be aware of is you've always been able to pivot. So that was one of the things you mentioned earlier. You were like, I say yes before I even know what I'm getting myself into, but it's led to these other revenue channels that have completely blessed and blown up your business in a great way. And so just being able to pivot when the market changes, that is absolutely vital.
Yeah, I had someone ask me, like, what do you think has kept you in business for so long? And I was like, I pivot. And it's not that
Mm,
I give anything up, is that, like we opened up as 2003, I was a paper store. I was doing stationery and custom invitations and all that stuff. And my store still offers that. But
yeah.
instead of just being a paper store, we call ourselves a paper party and gift store. And then
Yes.
we're very blessed to now have our own private line. And with that, we've, expanded and now, we're selling to other boutiques really across the world. I just got
Yeah.
an order from France. So,
That's awesome. I love that. And I just got back from Las
yeah.
Vegas market, gift market. And one of the, I mean, and anyone that is watching a clip of this, you can see some of Lauren's products behind her. She's very on trend. Like that's one thing I've noticed is, and I know that that contributes also just to your success, but just being like you pay attention and you're able to pivot even from a product standpoint. So really leads me into my next question. You're one of the few people on Faire who's both buying and selling. So when you sit down to develop a new product now, what do you see that maybe a brand only wholesale business completely misses?
I look at turnover in a store. I think about things like, well, how long is that going to sit on a shelf? How many
Mm,
people are going to need this and buy it? Is this something you're only going to buy one of and not need it again? So one of the things like I thought of was cosmetic bags. We all have too many cosmetic bags.
yep.
We buy them, we gift them, we get them dirty, we leave them places. So it's something that you'll buy more than one of. And it's not to say that I haven't made any errors either. I jumped on the pickleball trend and I
Hmm.
have a lot of pickleball paddles right now. And and it kept me from going in the mahjong trend.
Yeah.
And it's not that we never sell the pickleball paddles anymore through our brand, but they certainly, when I first got them, it was like, oh my gosh, we're out. We sold out in 30 days.
Yeah.
So I'm going to order 1,000 of this. And now I'm like, womp womp. People aren't that excited about pickleball. Well, I guess they are,
Yeah.
but they have their paddle. They're not
Yeah.
buying a ton of paddles
Multiple.
anymore.
Which is so funny because
Um,
when you mentioned pickleball, I was thinking, okay, mahjong is like the trend now, and you called it. But I think that's one of the things too is that when they have a mat and they have their pieces, they're not going to buy more. Exactly what you said.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, and I've had like even clients in my own store saying like, "Oh, you should do something mahjong," and
Hmm.
I always say I don't want to get stuck with it. So I
Yeah.
guess that's what I think about. I think about I don't want to get stuck with it, so the retailer is not going to want to get stuck with it either.
Yeah.
And I think about what people want to gift. So what I would want to gift a friend, or what my 14-year-old daughter wants to gift her friend. So
Hmm.
I think about that a lot. So, and I try to make things all work together. So A really
Yeah.
great birthday gift might be, a pair of pajamas and matching slippers, or the cosmetic bag with the slippers to match. I
Yeah.
think about a price point that somebody wants to buy. Um, I think, like, wow, this tumbler you could fill with candy and put a bow on it, or, things like that.
Yeah.
And I try to give my retailers hints as well. Um,
Yeah.
Merchandise lists with that, or, um, like we have these little keychain wallets that are
Mhm.
super cute. They're hanging somewhere behind me. And one of the things I told them is this is perfect. It's a $20 price point retail. And then you can put the Sephora gift card in it for
Oh, yeah.
your daughter's teen friend, and you don't feel like you're giving them nothing. I always feel like if I give a gift card, it's like not that exciting. But if you put in this like really cute keychain wallet, then it seems like something more. So,
Yes.
like I try to think about stuff like that.
That's so interesting because I was gonna ask you about merchandising and really I know that your retail background has such an influence on how you are presenting it to wholesale brands, and I think you just so eloquently laid that out that it's really about pairing products together and setting the stage for your retailers. So, as we talk about pricing, that is really where a lot of product brands freeze up. I don't know about you, but that's like one of the hottest topics. And so you've had to price for your own store margins from a retail perspective and then price as a wholesale B2B brand. And so, what does being on both sides teach you about pricing that you feel like a lot of brands get wrong?
Well, for us, I want to be in the middle. I don't want to be
Hmm.
something that's super expensive, that's unattainable, and then I don't want to be something that's inexpensive, which would make it then disposable,
Yeah,
and then something that doesn't hold up, basically. And I want it to still be perceived as quality, obviously.
for
So,
sure.
and I learned that lesson in my shop, and I learn it all the time in our storefront because I can't sell a candle in my storefront over $30.
Mm,
The shop across the street from me sells diptyque, which are $100 candles. So why can someone come in my shop and not want to buy a $32 candle, but they'll buy $100 one? And I think part of that is just knowing your customer base. We
yeah,
have, you know, uh, a little bit younger of a clientele. We have people that are buying for their kids, their teens, their college girls. And then, we put stuff in so you could get it for your house and stuff too.
yeah,
Um, so I try to think of it that way, and like who our end client is and who
yeah,
our end client for the retail store is ends up being the end client for our lifestyle brand as well.
yeah. That's so interesting as you're talking. I know the store you're talking about that sells diptyque candles.
Yeah,
And because
it's a
obviously being
gorgeous store.
a candle brand, I pay attention to all the candles when I go in a store. But it's very interesting because you're a very different store than they are and literally just walk across the street. And that buyer psychology, consumer psychology is, they'll buy it there, but maybe not at your store. But it works in reverse too. They're going to buy things at your
Right.
store that they wouldn't consider buying there either. And
Right.
so that really comes down to knowing your market and really you've created such a beautiful niche for your market too. So I love that.
Yeah, and I think, you walk in our store and it's pink and bright and happy and
Mhm.
colorful. And when you walk into something like that, you don't necessarily, want to buy $100 candle. You want to buy all the fun stuff.
Yes,
And
yes.
all that fun stuff tends to be in the midpoint.
Yeah,
So, would I like that own candle in my house? Sure. But you have to realize that all the time, it's maybe not exactly what you'd put in your house. Although not that I put everything that I have in my house, but also something that can blend with it. Like
yeah,
you can have this really cute, fun cosmetic bag and put your super expensive makeup in it.
absolutely. I love
So,
that.
yeah.
When a retailer opens your Faire page, you obviously know exactly what they're scanning for because you've shopped on Faire too for your store and you've done it 1,000 times yourself. So what are buyers really deciding in those first few seconds when they see a retailer's or a wholesale brand's page on Faire?
I think they're buying your story. I think
Mm,
they're buying kind of your look, your lifestyle, and the feeling or how you make them feel. And I think that's really important too. Like when
yeah.
they look at our brand, I want them to be like, wow, that everyday moment can feel special. And that's something you and I
Mm,
talked about,
yeah.
I had you do that 1 hour phone call with me. So if anyone's listening and is like on the fence about that, like do it because you were also able to give me a perspective on stuff where it's like, yeah, like stop thinking so much like a retailer there, Lauren. Like do case studies, like stuff like that. Um,
Yes.
but and we talked about how I love making that everyday moment special. Um,
Yeah.
and that's me. Like I had a friend come over the other day and I had this moo on and I was out in my garden cutting dahlias and she was like, "You just walked in and you're like this, cottage grandmother in your like floral moo and you have like a thing of like shears and flowers in your
I
hand."
love
And
it.
I'm like, that's kind of it was just like a small everyday moment that made me feel happy. And I was
Yeah.
using shears that we sell in our store with like a pretty floral handle and that not using something from like a huge box store and something from a small vendor that I got on Faire that makes me happy and feel extra
Yeah.
special when I'm clipping my flowers, makes me happy.
I love that. It's one of the things we talked about in your Faire audit is just you have kind of that tagline or like that's what it's not even that you put that tagline out there all the time, but that's literally what your products in your store evoke. That's the emotion is making the everyday moments special. And I remember a dear friend of mine said one day she was visiting me when I lived in North Carolina and she said, she brought me a gift and she said, "This is just a touch of fancy. We should just have a little touch of fancy." And it was like the emotion that evoked. And it's the same thing that I see in your brand. You do such a good job of building that
I
for your customers. You just know your ideal client so well. And it's very, very evident.
there's definitely things that it's like, gosh, I would have thought about that or um we could do better, but that's like part of being in business for so long. You have to grow and you have to go with the punches. Um, and
Yeah.
imposter syndrome is I think that's a big deal for female entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I feel like I never know what I'm doing. I feel like I am just hot mess express all the time. I have really bad ADHD. I'll put something down and not know where it is. And I think part of trying to be successful is also knowing your strengths that way of I know that I need somebody that is going to monitor me and be like, you left your scissors over there. You know what I mean? So,
That's a sign of a good
while
entrepreneur.
while I'm dreaming up all this stuff,
Yeah.
and going on to the next thing.
How has being a retailer changed the way you handle customer relationships, specifically with the stores that carry you? So, like reorders, communication, and the stuff that turns a one time wholesale order into a loyal partnership.
Um, I want every retailer to know how much I really appreciate their order.
Mm,
And I think that comes from my shop as well. We have a rack of greeting cards. And I want to be as nice as the person that comes in and buys $5 of greeting cards a month to I am to the person who just dropped $5,000 in the store.
yeah.
I mean, that doesn't happen too often, but you know what I mean. Um, you know, that one person isn't more important than the
Yeah.
other. Um, and that's how I try to be with our Faire customers as well. You place an order, I send you a thank you for placing the order. You place it again, I say thank you for your next order, for your last order. Like I just really, really appreciate people trusting me to be in their store because there are so many options out there. And
Yeah.
honestly, I'm honored. I'm honored that you wanted my pajamas. Um, I'm honored you're giving me a chance.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's so true. And I think it sounds so cliche, but like when you're buying from me, like you're paying for my daughter's all-star cheer career.
Yeah.
You're um all-star cheer is so expensive. It's just $1,000 in on a uniform a couple of weeks
Yeah.
ago, and I was like,
Oh
"Ugh,
gosh.
okay, I really need to sell more slippers." Um, but, like, you're really doing that, and so if somebody gets something and they're not happy with it, um, or for whatever reason, I'm gutted. Like, I
Yeah.
don't forget that. And I think that's part of the internet and people forget. It's so easy to hide behind a keyboard and throw out like, I'm so mad these slippers, came crushed or something like that. And you just want to be like, I worked really hard on your order
Yeah.
and I was here at 10 o'clock packing that. And I'm sorry, UPS, left it out in the rain. And like that hurts me because I
Yeah.
think, gosh, are they going to never order from me again? Like, are they upset with me? How do I answer this so that I don't come off like I don't care?
That's I think the thing that has always struck me is that I wanna treat people the way that I want to be treated, and also there's, and coming from a corporate background too, there's a line too of where someone is, taking advantage of your business, or you have to protect the business too, but also treat people well. And so I
Right.
think that's a hard line that some business owners have, especially entrepreneurs, when it is deeply personal. These are things that you've made, you've curated. And so when someone is trying to take advantage or doesn't like something that you've made, it does cut deep. And so
Right.
I don't know if you have an example of maybe like someone where they were just trying to take advantage. Like, how do you handle that situation from a customer service standpoint?
I tend to, and I don't know if this is a positive or negative on the type of person I am, but I make a joke. Like, if I am in an awkward situation, 9 times out of 10, I will put my foot in my mouth and think I'm being funny or, just like, be self-deprecating or something. And
Yeah.
I think what comes to mind is I hated saying no.
Mhm.
Our retail store is on a main street. Um, it's a small town outside, a historic town outside of Nashville. And because we're on this, thriving main street historic area, everybody thinks you're rich if you own a store. And
Yeah.
you get hit up, I don't know how many times a day or a week for, donate to our silent auction or, will you,
Yeah.
do this for the band or this, put your name on the t-shirts. And I discovered probably like 10 years ago that you just can't do it for everybody. One, because we are in business to make money.
Yeah.
Um, just like they're in their job to make money. That's what we're doing as well. And I had someone call and she said, I would just really love for you to give to our silent auction. You are just my favorite store. I love you guys so much. And I mean, she was just going on, and my ego was, like, "Oh my gosh, thank you."
Yeah.
Like, and I said, "Yes, of course I'll donate." And she said, "Wonderful. When can I pick up?" And I said, "Well, why don't you come in tomorrow and I'll have like a little basket ready for you." And she said, "Great. Would you remind me where you are again?" And I was like, and of course this was an awkward moment, so I threw out, "I thought I was your favorite store." And she was
You're
like,
right.
well, yeah, no, you are. I just, I get turned around on Main Street. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's what you say to everybody. I get it.
Yeah.
And, like that's how I played it off. And it was like, I couldn't just let it go and let it slide. I had to,
Yeah.
had to get in there. And One, I was like, that kind of taught me like, okay, you can't give to
Yeah.
everybody because you're not going to survive. Um, and so, I really wait for it to be people that come in my store that need something, or the high school where the girls come in looking for, right now, all the 16-year-olds want squishies and they come in all the time,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So, or my daughter's school and stuff. And, I have a certain amount that I know I can do. Um, and I do it. And when I fill it, my quota, I fill my quota. That probably was the hardest lesson, I think.
Yeah, that's actually a really good strategy of you kind of work that into, your marketing or operating expenses and have a budget. And then it's easier for you. Well, maybe you shouldn't say easier because it's always hard to say no. But I think, if you say yes to everyone, then you're not going to be in business.
A lot of times they come in and they say, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing
Mm,
this so I can give you exposure. And it always makes me kind of feel icky because it's like, no,
yeah,
this is mutual. Like,
it
I
is.
don't like nothing is one sided. Yeah.
So you've built all of this business and grown for over 20 years now, raising a family. And so for the woman that's listening to this episode and they feel like they have to choose between building a business and being present at home, what have the 20 plus years actually taught you about that?
I try to say to give myself grace. I'm not
Mhm.
sure. I think I have a really strong group of friends that we try to make each other give each other grace. And
Yeah.
I have a husband that tells me it's fine. I'm very lucky to have that. But I
Yeah.
think the most important thing is my family is pulled into what I do. Now,
Mhm.
we do only have one child, which I do know makes it a little bit easier. Um, but I know that if I need to drive her to her cheer practice, that when she goes to sleep, I'm probably going to be in bed on my computer on Faire ordering some Christmas stuff,
Yeah.
or I'm going to be talking to a manufacturer overseas when everyone's in bed. And it's a matter of fitting it into the moments that you have. So I'm not 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It's impossible to be 9 to 5 as an entrepreneur,
Right?
right? And to
Yeah.
be a mom and a wife, um, and a daughter and all those things. So like today, I know that I have to pick up my daughter from a pool party and get her somewhere. And I know that it's like, I don't want to miss that moment. So when I go home tonight, I know I have to work on our catalog for the
Yeah.
holiday. And it's just a matter of fitting it in, and then I also make my daughter and my husband part of it. Well, my husband gets dragged in whether he likes it or not. He's that
He
famous,
didn't have a choice.
my wife has a job and somehow he makes no money doing stuff. But he's an entrepreneur as well. So I'm lucky there that he's a web designer and he can work wherever.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so that that makes that makes us very lucky is that we both can be flexible. But I also involve my daughter in what I'm doing and her friends. They love coming here and I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
which pattern do you like for pajamas or will you try this on for me?" Or we just had like a photo shoot and I pulled in two of her friends to do it for our holiday PJs, and they had fun. And my daughter and I were sitting on the beach for spring break. And she was like, Mom, you should bring squishies into your line. And I was like, that literally makes no sense. Like, and I started with, you have to know like who your thing is and, blah, blah, blah. And then I thought, well, what kind of squishies would you do? And then I started thinking about, well, when I get squishies in my shop, gosh, I hate the way they look. They come in these yucky plastic bags and they're so cute on their own. And I wonder, so it started a conversation with my daughter and I was like, do you want to do this with me? And I thought it would be like a fun project for us to work on. And over spring break, by the time we got home, we had a little logo done. She helped me pick the colors and we named it. named it Pop Squish Co. And I told her, like, this is getting in on a trend, but understanding that this is a trend right now and it's hot. So, what are we going to do after this? And how are
Yeah.
we going to package this so it looks cute? So, like, I'm holding up things and I'm saying, like, can you still squish it when it's in this? Or do you think you could get this box open? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like bringing them in for the moments. And I don't think people realize, like, asking your kid to their opinion on something really does mean the world, whether you take it or not.
Yeah. Well, and they're also learning about entrepreneurship at an early age, and her getting to be a part of the design, the sourcing, the branding. That's so incredible that she gets that real life experience from her mom that has been doing
Yeah.
it for so long. Like what a cool thing that you can teach her and legacy that you leave too.
Yeah, she really, like, I've said to her a lot of times, like, what do you want to do? Like, what are we going to college for? And she was like, I want to be you. And I'm like, oh gosh, no, like,
That's so
go into
sweet.
finance. Like, in fact, she had to fill something out on for school, and it said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, my mom's boss. And that was in kindergarten.
That's
And
awesome.
that really made us chuckle, and little did she
Yeah.
know she already is my boss. Um, but, it's like, okay, like, how am I gonna leave this legacy for her? And I
Yeah.
came from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad owned a hardware store. It was my grandfather's, and then him and his brother took it over, and they closed it after 65 years. And he
Wow.
told me when I said I was opening my store, and he was nearing the end of his and they were going to sell the business, he said, "Don't you dare. Don't open a retail store." So anytime I complain, like, oh, and he was like, "I told you not to do it." So whatever I do, I try to leave in my mind, like, if she wants to be a doctor, a lawyer, a cosmetologist, whatever if she does stray from this, like, that's okay too. But I need to make sure I'm leaving her a legacy that she can pick up
Yeah.
or we can sell for her. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
One of the things I hope listeners take from this whole conversation is a successful woman entrepreneur that, I mean, you called it out. You were like, imposter syndrome is so real. And I still struggle with it. I still don't feel like I have all my stuff together, but you've built multiple successful brands while raising your daughter, while being a wife and daughter and friend. And it hasn't been easy, but you've learned to learn from your mistakes and to pivot when needed. And I think
Yeah.
so often what entrepreneurs get wrong is they give up. And they lack that consistency and tenacity. And you
Yeah.
are just such a shining example of someone that has built thriving business, even in the face of adversity and not always feeling confident. But it's an encouragement to, I
Yeah.
know, to me and to all of my listeners.
Thank you. I think part of being an entrepreneur is being stubborn.
Mm,
And not taking no. So
yeah.
if somebody tells me they can't manufacture something within like a certain amount of time, I either keep pressing or find someone else that can, because I'm
Hmm.
not going to miss my deadline.
Yeah.
And you know, I think being stubborn and hard headed is part of it. And then having those moments where you do break down and you do cry and you're like, what did I do? I've ruined everything. And
I
then
have
being
1,000
like, okay,
pickleball paddles.
I have a lot. Do you see anybody want some pickleball balls?
Yes.
They're so cute. It's just no one's playing pickleball anymore.
Yeah.
What I should do is make one with mahjong on it and then maybe.
A mahjong style pickleball paddle.
Yeah, I think being stubborn is part
I
of it
love
and
that.
never giving up.
Love that. And so, as we wrap up, if a listener has a retail shop and wants to order from you, tell them where they can find you. And I think you have a special offer too for the She Sells Differently listeners.
Yes, I will do a little promo code. So if you're listening to this and you want to go on Faire, you can put in Andy10 and we can give you 10% off your order. And I will do that across all of our brands. So we have Rock Paper Scissors, we have Pop Squish Co. And then we also have a smaller brand which we haven't talked about, which is called Pip and Co.
We'll link all of those and the coupon code
Yeah.
in the show notes so that you can shop and grab them if you're a retailer and want them for your store. And then where else can my listeners find you? Maybe if they want to shop you direct or on your website, where can they find you on social media?
So our website is rockpaperscissor.com, and that is our store, our brand, all the things. And then we have obviously Instagram. It's the Rock Paper Scissors, and that's for the retail store and the brand. And then I recently just started one called Rock Paper Scissors, the brand, just for people that were retailers, and so they weren't getting confused and seeing balloon installations as well. So that's where you can find us.
I'm so inspired by you, and I know so many of my listeners are too. So thanks for taking the time to share your wisdom and your experience.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Until next Wednesday, I'll have another episode of the She Sells Differently podcast. Until then, I'm cheering you on. All right, that's a wrap on today's episode of She Sells Differently. Friends, it would be a huge blessing to me if you would take 2 seconds to rate and subscribe to my podcast. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Until then, I'm cheering you on in your entrepreneurial journey. See you next time.